Hello everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate it. Today we're going to be diving into episode 7 of our tattoo critiquing series here. Basically, for those who are just watching this video for the first time and you may not be familiar with the tattoo critique series, it's where users and viewers submit their tattoos, whether it's on human skin and or fake skin, and I go ahead and I kind of just give my opinions and insight as to how I would approach it. Overall though, I just want to point out before we continue, this series right here, these tattoo critiquing videos aren't by any means to discourage and or tell you you're doing this wrong, or I'm not trying to shed any negativity in any way, shape or form. I'm going to simply just give my approach on how I would have approached it, what I would do in the future, and things like that to see if I can help those who are viewing and those who submit in a better direction, and possibly potential viewers as well can maybe take what they want, leave what they don't. With that being said, let's just dive straight on into this. Now, for those who are interested in submitting for future episodes, go ahead and submit your tattoo works, whether it's on human skin or fake skin, to yuckmadethis@gmail.com. I will go ahead and look through them and start organizing them for future episodes. The first one that we're going to kick this off with is going to be a submission by a person named George Gayen. I appreciate your submission. Thank you very much. Now, with that being said, let's dive into this. Off the bat, one thing that I am noticing is the line work and the shading. It kind of meshes together in some areas, such as right here. So the shading is rather dark for me. The shading kind of takes away and it draws the line. Okay, so let me rephrase it this way. The shading kind of takes away from it, and as well as the line work, it also draws my attention to all of these spaces, and it points out a lot of mistakes here, just the line work alone. So what I'm trying to get at, let me get a brush here, bear with me. Okay, so where my eyes are going to is right here off the bat. So I'm looking all basically around, and I'm seeing a bit of inconsistencies within the line work. Allow me to, bear with me, my brightness is all the way up. So as you see right here, if we were to go in and focus more on the line work, A to B, and I myself still have trouble, not every line I do is perfect. I'm not by any means perfect in any way, shape, or form, nor am I the best tattoo artist, nothing like that, but I genuinely do try my best along the way. So as you see, if we're just simply trying and getting a game plan, so I'm gonna, from here to here, I'm gonna kind of move in this sort of motion. You can kind of hear my thought process out loud. So I know the line's gonna go like that. And being patient until I get there and just staying at that consistent speed is going to be key. If we're doing that throughout each and every line within our tattoos, it's gonna make for a much better read. I know sometimes when I first started, I used to start the tattoo and then I kind of wanted to rush the lines, and I don't know why I was like that. Over the time zone, and even now up until today, I'll still practice genuine patience upon pulling lines within tattooing. I always have to remind myself that there is no rush. But you can see though, as I am simply and being my way through, it does make for a better read on the tattoo. Now granted, I understand, and I say this every episode, this is an iPad, so it's easier kind of said than done. However, the same rule of thumbs will still apply when we're under the needle. And even if we're using a larger configuration, you kind of get my drift. So you can see right here that we already have a more pronounced area right there, and then you can literally continue with that all the way through until you're at your liking, like so. I'm kind of just winging that here. I'm not sure how the design is because the shading kind of takes away. The shading is a bit dark. I would recommend, if you're making your own gray wash, I would recommend trying to get a pre-made gray wash. I used to make my own gray washes and I never got consistent results. So that's the reason why I recommend a pre-made gray wash. And I would recommend Dynamic pre-made gray wash. That one's a really good and solid gray wash system there. and it's always consistent. I know what to expect when I use it. So you can see though, right here in this area, we're making for a much better read on the tattoo, and that's gonna apply to the entire tattoo, and that's just for lining. Shading, again, would go back to a gray wash. I can't really show you how to shade on a video. That would be another video on its own. So I always try to help those with the most apparent and easiest things to fix, which is typically 9 times out of 10, the line work. So as you can see, because this tattoo right here is line based, it's not really shading based, or we weren't going for that realistic look, if I am correct. So that's the reason why I say line work is going to be important in this tattoo. And as you can kind of see though, we're making for a better read here. I'm going to go ahead and go this way. And you kind of get my drift. I'm just winging this specific tattoo here, the design rather, and trying to just illustrate my points. Very straightforward stuff right there. And you get my idea. Tapering in and out is also very, very important. I guess to me, it does make for like these little tapers right here at the ends of your lines. When you're doing that with a needle as well, it does make for a better read on that tattoo. To me, that adds quality to your tattoos. So you can kind of just get the drift there. The overall idea, I feel, has been demonstrated. I would really just focus on the line work and remaining calm, consistent, and steady when you're applying the lines. I think that it will be a great place to start. And once we kind of get that motion going down, we can kind of figure out, I think within that process of learning, you know, A and B and remaining consistent with the lines, we would have kind of figured out how we want our shading. If not, I would also recommend messing around with different shadings once you get a gray wash system. Overall though, I appreciate your submission. Thank you very much, George. I would recommend the first thing would just to work on your line work, try to be consistent, and try to find the correct needle depth so that way you don't have any inconsistencies or wobbles within your needle as well. So that way you can make for better reads on your tattoo. Just with the line work alone, if we can lay down a bit more solid line work, then the shading as well will add to the tattoo and not take away. We will go ahead and get into shading later on. Again, that's going to be a lot more to explain. Definitely start with the line work and try and find consistencies and get more comfortable upon pulling lines. Yet again, I genuinely appreciate your submission. If you have any questions, please, George, feel free to drop them down below, or anyone else as well. And I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. With that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next submission here. And the next submission is going to be from Paul Fay. So for this one though, floral, I'm not sure if I've already covered this one. If I have, please forgive me. But for Paul Fay, this specific floral design right here, what I notice is the line work, like the line weights here are a bit, and this is opinionated, 110% opinionated, is not what I would have chose. I would have chose thicker line weights for this specific tattoo. However, everyone's different. Some may have chose a thinner needle. You chose this size. You get my drift. So what I'm trying to say is, if I go with a bolder line, so let me start right here. If I go with a thicker line and I'm pulling lines like this, to me, it's going to make for a better read in the tattoo. And it doesn't even have to be that big, maybe like a 14 round shader or something to that extent. And also what I'm noticing is with the line work, as you see, like right here, we wobble. And again, this happens to me as well. I'm not by any means perfect. It does happen. This is something that we learn and grow out of over time. And as you see right here, I'm gonna go ahead and taper that out right here. And I'm gonna repeat that again. Luckily, even if this was on human skin, that could be easily fixed as well. So that's not really of concern. I feel like if we were shading in the wrong areas, we can't really take out. We can always add more. So as you see though, even with the bigger line weight, we are getting a better read on the tattoo. If you notice, this tapers, the in and out tapers do add as well something to the tattoo. And all of these little variables, I feel, make for a better read, which adds quality to your tattoos. So when it's a better read, it's gonna read as quality to people. And as you see, I'm just repeating this, finding out which way I want each line to flow, A to B. Very simple. Not every line is going to need a taper. But as you can see though, just with this specific part being done, you can really get an idea of how this tattoo can change for the better. And just by simply adding line weight, The shading I'm not fully with and I'm not fully against on here. However, shading is fully subjective to each their own. I do feel though that the dotted stipple style approach is a nice way to go. So I'm not against that. In terms of where the shading was put, I would have put it maybe in different places. But for now, that's what I would have focused on, is the line weight. And as I stated, 90% of tattoos that people are submitting is typically the line weight. Shading is something that's more developed and worked into, I feel. And lining is something that can be developed like right off the rip, and tattooing is what I feel. And again, others may feel differently about that approach. That's just how I see it. So as you see though, let me zoom out. With a bigger line weight, it's making for a completely different read on the tattoo. In my opinion, this is a better tattoo to go with a bigger line weight over a thinner line weight. This looks like maybe a 7-round liner or something to that extent. It's a smaller round liner. I would either go with a 18-round liner and above, or see if you can get into a round shader. Either way, you would still get to where you're going. And then with the shading, I mean, I'm not against it at all. I mean, that's pretty much where I would have put them. What I recommend though is fluctuating between voltages and stippling, finding where you're comfortable. So that way when you're stippling, you're getting nice, consistent, smooth dots each and every time. It's gonna vary. I've seen some people stipple at 5 volts. I've seen some people stipple at 8 volts. Everyone's different. Find your flow for the shading and then hit it back again in the same spots that you did, but follow the form more, if that makes sense. So how I would approach that tattoo is simply that way. I would just work on the line works, pick a more heavier line weight, and then I would also work on the stippling, checking out different voltages to see what best fits what I'm going for. Now, I truly appreciate your submission. Thank you very, very much, Paul. Should you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below. I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. Let's go ahead and move on to this next tattoo. As you can see, for me right here, this is actually a really solid tattoo right here. The lines are done well, and the shading, I'm not against it at all. I actually like the shading a lot. You can see there is some experimentation going on here, which is great. I still experiment. This looks like it's done on real skin based off of these slits right here and right here. That also happens to me when I'm using real skin, so that looks awfully familiar. If you're watching this, Jamie, and it is on real skin, drop it in the comments down below and let me know if that's correct. Let's proceed here. So I have very little to say about this tattoo because I feel like it's perfectly, or nothing is ever truly perfect, forgive me. As I've noticed, every tattoo I've ever done has never ever been perfect. It's always had flaws and imperfections, and every tattoo that I've pretty much seen people do have flaws and imperfections. The human skin is flawed and imperfected, so I don't feel we can do perfect tattoos. However, we can definitely execute tattoos with prestige. And what I mean when I say that is, if you look right here, like these lines are really nicely done. I love how the line weight shifted from a bigger one to a smaller one right here. Like, that's immaculate. And look at the shading. The shading is in nice areas too. I would have put the shading in different places. However, that's the beauty of this craft. You can see though right here, like the fin is behind the anchor right here. You can see the little white highlights. This was done with a certain skill set and expertise. There was a certain level of technicality involved with this tattoo, so which is why I have very little to say. I don't have advice to give, and for that I apologize, but I do have a recommendation. What I would recommend is trying out like different ways to stipple. So like, instead of coming to the edge right here, next time try to start the stippling edge. Bear with me. Try to start the stippling edge like maybe somewhere right here, and then right here, and then stipple that way, if that makes sense, leaving a negative space around there. That's a cool recommendation to try, just to see what type of results you get. Same thing with the fins. Try to leave the negative space right here, which is that natural skin tone from right there, and then stipple down that way. That'd be a cool thing to try, just to see again what type of results you get. Also, maybe even a heavier line weight for certain aspects and attributes of your stencil. So like maybe like right here, what if we went with a not that heavy of a line weight, but something a bit more heavier of a line weight like that, and just to see what type of reads you get, and maybe mixing up different things like this, different elements, different line weights, different places to place your shading will allow you to kind of develop a little bit more into something more your style, so to speak, if that makes sense. That's just how I would approach it. You can kind of see right there, even a bigger line weight, it kind of adds a little bit to this tattoo right here. And it doesn't even have to be every single one. It could be, you know, every other one. However you choose to do it is up to you, but that's the only recommendation that I would give. Other than that, well done. This is a really nicely done tattoo, very well executed. Don't have anything negative to say about it. Just, you know, again, more so these recommendations right here. Let me actually do a couple of more just to kind of illustrate my point here, and so we can kind of see here. Maybe even trying, like, for shading, like using grays, like actual grays. I have some grays that I'm gonna do reviews on from Intense. Maybe even something like that would add a little bit of oomph to the tattoo, a little bit of interest, which again to me adds quality. But you get the idea here. So like having a bigger line weight and these smaller line weights, it kind of add something to the tattoo. That's the only recommendation I have. I truly appreciate your submission, Jamie. Thank you very, very much. Keep up the great work on your end. Should you have any questions, though, please feel free to drop them down below. I'm still going to do my best to assist you as well in the best possible direction. That goes for anyone watching as well. This next tattoo right here is submitted by someone who left their name out, which is fine. If you submit and you don't want to have your name in here, just go ahead and mark unknown. By all means, please feel free to go ahead and do that. For this tattoo, I'm actually not against this design at all. I actually like this design. This is something that I would enjoy tattooing and have fun tattooing as well. This is well within my alley and style of tattooing. Shading would be subjective. Let's go ahead and begin though. For this, I would definitely use different line weights. I do like that you use different line weights, like for this lightning effect and the outside of the body, as well as the details here. That's good work. It's a good thought process, and we're in the right direction. For me, what I am noticing here is just a bit of like, it looks a bit of, I guess I would say inconsistent, but rather more so the A to B approach was kind of overlooked. And why I say that is because right here to right here, you can kind of see there's a bit of inconsistency within this line. And again, this happens to me all the time, which is why I have to get comfortable and then pull my line. That's going to vary, but I am noticing that right here. And another thing that I'm noticing is that each and every line ends with a round point. So we're doing that, and that also makes up in the read of the tattoo. Allow me to demonstrate. So if I go right here and I taper that out, go right here, I taper that, that's a bit too heavy, taper that, taper that, taper that out, taper that out. You get my drift. So I'm beginning to taper out right here, and then the same thing with this. I'm gonna go over here, taper this out, taper out as well. Can even add one right there. You get my drift. So as you can see, just with adding those little details, just adding the tapers alone changes the umph of the tattoo, adding interest. And again, interest to me is quality, or translates to quality, especially when the read of the tattoo is great. We always have to worry about that readability. And you can see right here how the line goes, and it abruptly stops at this hard solid edge right there. That I feel is something that if we just taper out, I also have a video on tapering in and out, even like that, so you can check that out on your end. You can just type in YouTube Daniel Yuck taper in and out, and you'll see that video pop up. But you can see with that tapering, it does make for a better read. So therefore, when you're doing the tattoo, if you would just kind of find your A to B, find your comfortable positioning, and then tapering out your lines like so. And again, that's a bit of a heavy line weight, but you get the example, you get the point that I'm trying to make, and it's going to add up. It's going to make for a much better read. And you can see right here, we started off consistent. I'm not sure how many times we go over the lines, but try to go for those one pass lines, which is why I'm saying be comfortable, pull your line, and then, you know, taper it out. And just do as best as you can in doing that. You can see in this little area right here that I tapered everything, it does make for a much better read. And that's just my opinion on the tattoo. This bigger configuration could have still been tapered out, I feel. So you get my drift, and kind of that tapered, sharp look actually adds to the tattoo, and it looks like it's supposed to be there. So I feel like attention to detail is everything, and that's what makes for a better read. So if you go back and you try to add some tapers, you know, I guarantee you it may make for a better read. If you do that, if you do update it or anyone else updates it with the information that I'm relaying here, send it back to me so we can take a look at it and see, you know, how we feel about it. If you like it, if you don't, all that type of good stuff. But overall, you can literally see, that's probably a bit too heavy there for those lines. You can see though, the point that I'm trying to make has been illustrated in terms of the tapering. And then if you're comfortable to pull your lines from A to B, so that way you get them nice, clean, and saturated. So I would recommend working on your tapering out, and I would also recommend working on a bit more consistent line work, and it's going to reflect within the tattoos that you are doing. So that's how I would approach it. That's pretty much the advice or suggestions that I would relay to you here. I genuinely appreciate your submission, whoever this was. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop it down below. I'm going to do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. Let's actually go ahead and step into another one here. And this one is submitted on human skin, obviously. And by all means, please feel free to submit them on human skin. I know in the beginning we didn't take human submissions. However, now we can, now we do. Let's go ahead and just jump right on into it. So as you can see right here, I don't ever recommend practicing on yourself, even if it's, you know, yourself. I don't recommend jumping straight into that. I'm not saying that I'm against practicing on ourselves, as I am not. However, I am against practicing on ourselves with little to no experience under the needle holding a machine. So I would highly recommend fake skins first, just to get more acquainted with the entire tattooing process, then jumping into human skin. With that being said, here is why. As you can see, if I zoom in on the eyes right here, it's a bit blown out. So when we were doing this, I'm not sure the thought process behind it, but it looks as though we were really like holding that hand down and putting that needle in there. And also one thing is that stands out is the line weights. I'm not sure if there is different line weights or if it's all the same. That's going to vary, because the reason I say that is because right here the line weights look far different from this right here. These are actually some pretty nice clean lines, consistent lines that were pulled in this area, as you can see. But if we zoom in on the areas where we overlapped, we have these blowouts right there, and you can really see them, which is another reason why I recommend fake skin. I do highly recommend fake skin, so that way we're acquainted with this right here, and so that way we can avoid stuff like this. However, allow me to say what I would do in the tattoo. As you see right here, I would just more so, again, going back to A and Bing it, as I stated, about 95% of people that submit, it's typically about line work. So let's say if we went back over all of this with maybe a standard 11 round liner, you know, we may get a far better read on here as well. We may be able to potentially hide some of these blowouts that are in betweens. So how I'm thinking about this is I would make sure I'm comfortable and I can pull the line A to B. I pull the line, do my thing, A to B, and I'm going to repeat this slow process until I am done. A, B, until the entire tattoo is done. And taking your time A and B and making sure you're doing your tapers where you need and all of that, just doing the best that you can, is going to make for a better read in the tattoo. As you can see, it is making for a better read right here. And allow me to just kind of illustrate this, and then I'm going to go ahead and jump up to the top part here. So you can see from that half being done, it definitely makes for a better read. As we can see right here, like this part of the line is different. I guess it's different over this part of the line. How I would fix that is I would get like maybe again an 11 round liner, and I'm going to go back and I'm just going to simply run the line back over when this is healed all the way through, and then taper it out to make it look more cohesive, like one full solid saturated line. Same thing with that. And with that, I'm just making sure that the line weight is going to be, if not bigger than that, making sure it's almost the same size of it. You just want to ballpark it and make sure you still have a very similar line weight to what was already there. So as you see, that's how I would approach that. Same thing with these up here, like this right here. I'm not saying that it's horrible, but it's definitely bad. I mean, right here, as you can see, these are heavy blowouts. So I'm not sure if this was positioning because it was on yourself. That, you know, that's what it may have been, where we're tattooing ourselves and we can't quite get comfortable. But what I would do is I would get a different line weight, and I would recommend trying to just go back over it very lightly to fix. However, it could get worse, because if we're inputting more ink, logically what's going to happen is, again, more ink is going to be pressed down. So I would be wary of that, and maybe develop your hand a bit more before we touch this again. And that's how I would do it though. Change the line weight up enough so that way it could possibly and potentially cover majority of the blowouts under. And again, I don't recommend going back over them just yet until your hand is a bit more developed here. But as you see, that's how I would approach it. And I'm tapering each and every one out. So if this was on human skin, I would probably be standing up for these and approaching it like with the human laying this way. And then I'm going to be pulling the lines in towards me while I'm stretching the skin, just like that. Stretching the skin, boom, just like that, all the way through until I am done. And as you can see though, with that line weight, it makes for a better read. Not only that, you can always go back and shade right here down to hide the blowouts. That'll hide it perfectly. You know, to each their own. I'm pretty sure some artists do that. As no one's perfect, blowouts can and will happen. Overall though, that's how I would approach it. Very straightforward stuff, the line weight. So I would recommend though kind of trying to develop your hand prior to, updating this tattoo. Right here, you can probably hit this one again with, an 11 round liner, a double or a double zero or a standard. And you can, A to B, make these straight like that. And just try and be consistent all the way through to really double up on these lines and fix these lines. Don't get me wrong, this still happens to me where I'll make a wobbly line from time to time, and it's as simple as letting the line heal, and then when the client comes back in, you can literally pass over it with the same configuration, and 8 times out of 10 you can fix it like that. But yeah, there you have it. I genuinely appreciate your time here and your submission. If you have any questions at all, Chandler, by all means, please feel free to drop them down below. I would genuinely appreciate it. Thank you very much, Chandler. I truly appreciate your submission. And the last one here is going to be Jesse Torres. This is a tattoo that I decided to put in this review, as I feel that I would be able to pull this off myself, and I would use a lot of stippling and line work within this specific style of tattoo. Now for this for this tattoo specific, one thing that I'm noticing is the darks, like the dark shading is real dense, and there's very little, I guess, dimension and depth variation between the darks and the shading, which kind of makes it read as flat to me. Not only that, when I zoom in over here, attention to detail is super important. As we can see, there was multiple I guess weights that we use on the machine as in terms of how deep we went, resulting in a darker patch here, a lighter patch here. Nope, it's patchy right here. So you can see that. So you can see the patchiness right here up close. Lighter patch, darker, mids, very lights. If we zoom out, it's going to read that way. And that's the idea pretty much behind everywhere. As you can see, we have a bit of patchiness right here. What I would have done as well is, I see this is maybe with a bigger, maybe you're stippling with like a bigger round shader or something. I don't know what you did this with, but that's what it looks like. If that was the case, I would have done the shading, and I would have also hatched it this way, cross hatched the shading back and forth this way, just maybe up until like right around here, to give it a little bit more dimension in the face, make it a little bit more darker. That's how I would have approached it, but that's what I'm noticing right now. Another thing that I'm noticing is the line work here. I feel it could have been a bit better executed. So let's say if we go back to the pistol right here, and I use a similar line weight, and let's just say I'm as consistent as I possibly can be, pulling nice, clean, crisp, straight lines. As you can see, nice and crispy there. And again, this is with an iPad, but the same rule of thumb is going to apply to tattoos. You want to be able to pull nice, clean, saturated lines prior to taking on tattoos of this, caliber here. This is a more advanced tattoo, I feel. Could be wrong about that, to each their own. So as you can see though, Fixing the lines right here does make for a bit of a better read on the tattoo. However, that shading is still a bit rough, which is drawing the eyes to places other than reading the tattoo. So as you can see, I'm gonna saturate this right here. And as you can see, if we saturate it and get it really nice and saturated and put the ink in there cleanly, it's gonna make for a better read right there. Same thing is going to apply to the entire tattoo. So like, for example, right here, if we were doing straighter lines, I think that this is a bullet, like a, you know, like a bullet belt. If that's the case, we're definitely gonna want these very straight and cohesive, because bullets are rarely ever bended or, you know, bent or anything like that. They're straight, cohesive, parallel lines right here as best as we can. And then same thing with here, you know, you don't want to fluctuate too much from or deviate from the original stencil here. And this right here may have been like that just for the design going into that, you know, like they're in a pouch or something like that. So I get that, that can work. But as you see though, better lines are gonna make for a better read on the tattoo. Even when we connect it right here and do everything that we need to do, it's going to make for a much better read on the overall tattoo here, as you see. So I would recommend, again, going back to the 90%, working on the line work and also the shading. I'm not sure if you have a gray wash system or if this is a custom gray wash system that you are making, or if it's a just straight black. I don't know, but I would recommend, you know, looking into the dynamic gray wash system, so that way you can have a pre-made gray wash system that is super consistent and you'll know what each and every one does. The different shadings, you'll know that you're going to need this percentage for this shading, and etc. You get my drift. Also, as you can see right here, these lines, I would have hit them with a bigger line weight and kind of amplified the ones that I'm going to be shading next to, so to speak. And then I would have added my shading in there next to these right here. But as you see, I'm tapering out and it's making for a far better read on the tattoo right here. Very nice, very clean, very cohesive though. So overall though, that's what I would recommend working on is A and Bing your line work, making sure that you can be a bit more consistent upon pulling the lines. And also I would recommend looking into a gray wash system that's already pre-made, so that way we get a much more consistent look. And also I would work on, you know, where you're going to put the shading as well. So there's multiple variables. I wish I can teach you all shading here in these videos, but that is a whole other ball game on its own. So that's why I always recommend, whenever I see line work and our line work isn't fully saturated, then I feel we can start there. Once we get the line work, shading is going to kind of fall into place, is always my approach. So for those who are curious, if all I say is line work, it's a process. If we can't do lines, you know, chances of us being able to shade smoothly would be less. It's just how I see it. Overall, thank you for your submission, Jesse Torres. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you everyone else who submitted as well. I appreciate you all submitting. Thank you very much. Now, if you have any questions, Jesse, please feel free to drop them below. I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. That also applies to everyone who is looking. If you have any questions at all, please drop them down below. I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. Now, if anyone hasn't, be sure to go ahead and show support on my social medias. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, all under the same name as my YouTube, Daniel Yuck, DANIELYUCK. I would truly appreciate the follows on social media. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring that bell, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. Thank you for tuning in yet again. You all have a great day.